Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel today. I'm Kevin, and today we're back to our first World War topic. So in our last topic, we already talked about almost anything in the world. Today we are going to talk about the war again, but yet we have a new word that maybe some of you guys don't understand: the home front. Yeah, this is a very, let's say, complicated word to understand because the home is behind the front line. But what is the home front, right? So today our main topic is about the home front. And for the explanation, that means about the rising of women, the chance that the world gave the women in the society to take back their prices and also their place in the world, and also about how they have to work for the industrial and also to keep a country living while the men are on the front line, and that's why it's called a home front. So let's come straight into our topic. So, with civilians living under the threat of bombs and dealing with shortage caused by naval blockage, the First World War is the one that creates, let's say, greater impact on the civilians no more day than any other previous conflict. While the men were away fighting, it was up to the people left behind to keep the home front or the industrial of their own homeland running smoothly. And of course, this thing is not just about industrial, it's about food, about bandage, about money, and about a lot of things else. So, the first thing that happened when the wars break out is that women have to go to work. Many women had worked before the war, but the job available for them is very low paid and also very rare, because at that time women are not like some the same as men. There's still the thought of woman is bad and men is good. And of course, in that time, the job were limited a lot, and most were expected to stay at home to look after the family and their husband. But in the early part of the war, women were mainly involved in charity work for making bandage, socks, and the balaclavas to send to the front line. Because at this time, the industrial doesn't really drop down too much. But as more as the men left for the front, women had to take the place that they left. So the war created new jobs for the women. But of course, there are also jobs that is heavy and dangerous, but there's no choice for the girls and they have to take all of them. They operate telephone exchange, the process, drove buses, work in agriculture, and even took on dangerous and heavy jobs such as mining, shipbuilding, or even packaging or creating the new explosive cells. And in most countries, the politics of war is also a problem. The rival political troops usually attack each other and try to take control all over the government. But at this point, when the war already become a serious thing from all over the world, every government, even when they are rival or not, has go into one, or you could say they had become friends to get over the difficult time. And with that way, they create a co-op government that is available to brought in tough measures to control industrial production and wage, to prevent workers from striking, and also to prevent the country from dropping down and losing their, yeah, let's say, value on the earth. Before the war, most women weren't allowed to take part in elections in Britain. Women known as suffragists had spent decades fighting for the right to vote for the woman. The leader, Emmeline Pankhurst, suspended the Vote for Women campaigns to encourage women to support the war, and eventually this would further their causes. In the general election of December 1918, women in Britain, British women, yeah, whatever, they had the first time to vote in election and intersection. And of course, this thing has partly in recognition of their wartime effort. So, after all, in this part, it means that the words the works that the woman did in wartime pay back them their recognition, and also about their value has been proved for the the society. So that way they get enough process and value to truly become a citizens and get the equal right to vote, to live as normal human. And of course, this thing was partly created by the wartime. If the war didn't happen, the things, the eventually outcomes will still be the same. But I believe that if the First World War don't happen, the equal for women would be more longer to exist because they don't have any value that the government and people can see in front of their eyes. But even with women replacing male from workers, most countries have experienced food shortage at some point. Everywhere, posters and leaflets advise people not to be wasteful and go to work is everywhere. Everyone had to get used to waiting in line for food and taking the taking the part when it became available. And rationing, of course, was become a very, let's say, new things, but was introduced in Germany and later in Britain. But as goods became scarce, prices rose faster than people wait, and that thing created loss of prices. Many struggled to afford even for their pieces. Britain and France got over the problem by fixing prices, but in the German, Austria, Hungary, the problem is even more worse, and thousands of civilians suffer the terrible poverty, malnutrition, and starve. So, many people who live in the combat zones were forced to flee the war-ravaged home. As long as the industrial keep going down and the shortage keep happening everywhere in all over the world, in those countries who join in the war, there is some people who have to leave their hometown. Leave the hometown to live with their relatives, or become wanderer, or even going to live with their friends or people in another country. Of course, even for those who didn't really in the war zone, there are still lots of things that affect to the basic life, such as work, industrial, economic, and of course there are lots of people who have to even shelling their home so that they could get money to move away. But in that time, they were closed, fed, and given medical care by the local charity workers. But of course, the lodging and place to live were often very basic, and of course are not really as good as it is before the war break out. And even for those who didn't face a traumatic upheaval, it was important to keep the morale. So Paris was not far from the Western Front, and at this time the entertainment has doing its job. So let's say the soldiers from the Western Front of Germany usually come to Paris. There maybe there's some problem, but the soldiers usually come from the Western Front to Paris, and of course to entertain the troops. Many cafes, cabaret bars, cinemas, and galleries stayed through the night so that they could entertain their heroes to keep protect the homeland. And okay, that's what all I want to talk with you guys today. And for the last opinion, while everyone on the home front tried to keep business running as usual, they dread hearing the news of their loved one or their relative die. Everybody lived in scares and anxiety every day, looking for the newspaper from the front line to see if there is anybody from their family or their relative, or even people who they know have died, missed, or being captured from the war. And for those children and for the wife women who hear that their friends, their brother, their dad, or their husband has died, being captured, or missing on the world. Their life was never the same as before. So we could see that the First World War, even though it's not going to get the same effect on many fields. I mean, every field have the different level of effect, but at least we know that the industrial and the woman places were rising. Ones are going down worse, and one is being taken high, very high compared to the past. And of course, it affects a lot on how the sections and the politics work on from all over the world, and especially for, let's say, countries like German, France, Russia, or America. Okay, so that's all I want to talk with you guys today about the effect from the First World War to women and to the industry, and of course about the home front, about what women have to take from their husbands, which was left like jobs, like responsibility, and like things that keep the country going, and so that they could do all of it. This thing is also a proof for the world that maybe men could do many things that women can't do, but that is just because they don't let the woman be. And if the woman even doing it, maybe they are not as good as men, but still after time, I think that they will develop and change themselves to catch up with the men. So if you think that those jobs are not good or like not fit for women, maybe you should try to train some of your workers who is women, so that they could try to create their own result. Maybe at first it's not getting enough, let's say, profit and enough money for you to keep going, and maybe you will feel that it's a stupid ideas, but I think that to make sure that everybody has the same opportunity, which satisfies the wish for the girls, for the women, and which also prove that sometimes we could also lies on the responsibility for the other gender, because after all, men, even though they did a lot of things, but sometimes they need someone to help them. Nobody is God, even God needs help. Okay, so that's all I want to say with you guys today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in my next video. And now I think it's time to stop our topic about the First World War and about its effect today. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.